Hello, I'm Toby Fox from 1.5 Million New Homes, the Local Government Challenge, sponsored by Redloft and Mount Anvil and Pitman Tozer Architects. Every month I'm visiting a different council to find out what works and what needs to change to get new homes built. And this month I'm in Westminster. So I'm here with Luke Tozer, who is the owner of Pitman Tozer Architects, one of our co-sponsors for this episode with Westminster City Council. Luke, tell us a bit about your campaign for building more affordable homes.
Thanks, Toby. Architects Action for Affordable Housing was a campaign that was born of, I guess, a frustration, like perhaps all good campaigns, that we weren't doing enough really for creating the kind of affordable housing in the right places of the right types that we should be. I was at a conference, in fact the conference is coming up down in Brighton in a...
This is the CIH, Chartered Institute of Housing conference in Brighton.
And everyone was saying, you know, isn't it great all the good new homes we're providing? And actually I was sort of left with the feeling that we weren't serving society properly. We weren't providing the homes, enough of the homes, and not that the homes weren't of reasonable quality, but they weren't necessarily in the right places and with the right levels of infrastructure, and how we needed to be part of the conversation as architects. So one of the joys and challenges of housing is that it's incredibly complex and interwoven with social fabric and economic fabric and the construction industry, and we as architects are only a very small part of that. But the sort of superpower that we do have is design, which is where, you know, we come in at the beginning with the initial sketch, which tries to balance various competing requirements, number of homes, scale, place, all of those sorts of things. And we're often there as architects through the whole process, even after the residents have moved in. So we have a pretty good idea of what good housing looks like, but also how it functions and how to create it. So Architects Action for Affordable Housing combined with the Architects Journal to produce a publication which we just launched, Good Homes for All. Mm-hmm. And we have 20 case studies of different types of home across the UK, mm-hmm. Ranging from rural to urban and from low-rise to mid-rise. I think the tallest is 9 or 10 stories, and from new build to retrofit. So we've got a series of examples that show, hopefully to government and to the industry, that actually we can do it. We are able, and we're already delivering good quality homes. We just need to roll it out at scale, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have the capacity as an industry to do it, but we do need the industry support and, frankly, the government support and government funding. So I'm sure we'll be talking about grant levels, but that's a key part of it, having long-term certainty of funding, so that the sector can plan and provide the homes that we all know we need.
Yeah, we're sitting here in the part of the public realm on Harrow Road, where Westminster City Council has built some really high quality, 100% affordable housing. That's an example of a council trying to do the right thing. Yeah. What does your work and your campaign tell you about what works and what doesn't work in terms of delivering good homes at scale?
So our work is often with local authorities and with housing associations, and it ranges from, I guess this is a sort of infill development with an existing context next to infrastructure. You've got the canal, you've got the road, and that's something that we often we work on, those sorts of projects where the constraints are actually part of the opportunity for creating a good design. So whether it's next to a railway or a road, these are often sites that have lain dormant for many years, where frankly the values historically didn't enable homes to be created. over the last 30 or 50 years, values have changed enormously, and as has the technology for good sound insulation, good thermal insulation, and minimizing the amount of energy that's needed for a home. So actually now we've got the tools to turn old car parks in Croydon next to a flyover, as one of our projects, into 128 homes and offices and community facilities and new public realm that actually enhance the city and provide new homes. On the other side, there is, I guess, wider, larger regeneration projects where often we're part of a much bigger team, and there are multiple architects and multiple designers where we're trying to do a whole estate regeneration over a 10 or 15 or 20 year period. And that's one where those are the types of projects where bringing the community along with you, given it's such a long period of time, is even more important. And it's really difficult given the that time period. People often buy into it and then disappointed by how slow it is. So we often find there's a bit of consultation fatigue, that meeting your promises and delivering within a timescale is probably the single biggest challenge that we have.
You're, as well as being an architect with a practice in Westminster, you're also a local resident, aren't you? So what do you want to see from your council in terms of delivering new homes, in terms of the shape of the place that they're creating, and in terms of the way they talk to you about it?
Yes, I'm invested in, as you say, a local resident and our practices in Westminster as well. I think Westminster has some unique challenges in that it's got very high land values, and land is probably its scarcest resource, but that's where it needs to bring the various ingredients together, the local community, the development opportunity, the commercial opportunity for offices or community facilities, and the opportunity for new homes, to bring it together. And that's where design, or good design, can combine those into a scheme that actually creates a better bit of city. Ultimately, as a resident, what I want is, I love Westminster, I love central London, and it's varied in height, it's varied in kind of texture, but the streets and the buildings making places is what should be at the heart of all good new housing.
We should do a little plug as well. So speaking of placemaking, you've got your own sort of small part of placemaking in Westminster coming up, haven't you?
Thank you for raising it. Yes, we have a exciting world first, which is the installation of the new Tulip Cycle Wands. So in Sussex Gardens, between Lancaster Gate and Edgware Road, the first 250 or so tulips are being planted in the street, and they are cycle lane dividers that are made from the recycled plastic from Westminster and turned into brightly coloured tulips, the tulip heads that will run up and down the street. And they are safe for cyclists because if you bump into them, they spring back, and they provide physical protection between cyclists and vehicles.
Because they're so visible and bright.
They're visible, and actually they sit on a recycled rubber base, which if you bumped into it in a car, you would notice it.
You'd bounce.
You'd go back into the vehicle lane. So at the moment, these are painted cycle lanes, and the opportunity is to provide greater protection to cyclists, but also to enhance the urban environment and make the streets more beautiful as well, rather than the black and white bollards that you often see knocked and pointing in dangerously into a cycle lane, or sometimes knocked and just lying in the street.
And what's the additional kind of cost factor here? Like, why isn't everybody already investing in this sort of thing?
Well, Westminster are the guinea pigs. They've kindly volunteered to be the world's first, and there is a slight cost premium. I think at the moment they cost about twice as much as a standard bollard, but if we're able to roll them out at scale, that price would come down dramatically. But the real cost is not the installation cost, it's the long-term maintenance cost. So if the trial, which is in for 2 years, is really successful, it will actually lower the cost for the council in terms of the maintenance it needs on the street.
Well, I'm always happy to plug anything that makes life better for cyclists, but this weaves back into the 1.5 million new homes campaign, in that we're not just talking about units, we're not just talking about numbers of houses, we're talking about creating places for people to live in, and the cycling infrastructure, the transport infrastructure is an important aspect of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the complexity that I mentioned that any housing at scale has means that the placemaking needs to be integrated with the infrastructure, whether it's the road or the canal or the cycle lane, and that's the physical transport infrastructure, but obviously the social infrastructure as well. So the right type of housing is provided, the right type of tenure, the levels of affordability, so that communities, can thrive in the new homes that are created. I think thankfully long gone are the days when you have a single housing type and a single housing tenure, and you end up with,
sort of monocultures.
Exactly, monocultures and estates that represent that. One of the beauties of Westminster and the beauties of London is the complexity of the city and the variety and the diversity in all senses. And I think housing, whilst needing to be efficient to be delivered, the complexity comes and the diversity comes in the placemaking, the opportunities that you have. And given Westminster has such a long and rich history, every site comes with a very complex layer of history that you have to be aware of, and even if you're transforming it, kind of appreciate. The Victorians bringing coal into King's Cross down the Regent's Canal, the road infrastructure, the Westway carving through in the 1960s and 70s. All of these are important legacy elements that actually any new layer of design has to enrich and improve.
With your experience of the schemes that you've worked on as an architect, what needs to change in order to get more homes built? And I know that you're going to say more funding, grant funding specifically for affordable and social homes. So beyond that, what else needs to change?
If we had the adequate funding, I guess the single biggest thing is probably the culture around development, and it's changing an adversarial resistance to new development, thinking that developers are only interested in financial gain, and how there's a sort of toxicity about new housing and development that I think is wrong. And if we could change a new, more positive culture that welcomed good quality, well-designed, place-oriented development. So it's that cultural side that I think that's the opportunity of what could change. And I think there are hopeful signs about it, and that's partly what our Good Homes for All publication with the Architects Journal is centred around. There is the opportunity, I think, to deliver on what society needs through well-designed places.
Luke Tozer from Pitman Tozer Architects, thank you very much indeed for your contribution to 1.5 million new homes.
My pleasure. Thank you, Toby.
So that's it for another episode of 1.5 Million New Homes, the Local Government Challenge, sponsored by Redloft and Mount Anvil and Pitman Tozer Architects. We're going to be back with more later this month, perhaps in just a few days from Westminster. But until then, please hit like or subscribe if you like what we're doing, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.